I'm very grateful for the opportunity to address the assembled House tonight on this government's proposal to make permanent changes that they have been tinkering with, experimenting with over the last number of years on hybrid parliament, allowing members of parliament to address the House both from the floor of the chamber and via Zoom. And as a conservative, I think we have a role as conservatives to advocate for the conserving of the best traditions of our past. That doesn't mean that we oppose change in all its forms, but that means that we are cautious, appropriately cautious, I would say, about change, in that we want to ensure that in the process of changing fundamental institutions and other aspects about our national life, that we don't lose things that were important about the previous forms of those institutions that we're maybe not always fully conscious of. Members of the government and of the NDP have repeatedly asserted that the current system is working. I think many members are relatively new in this House. I was only elected in 2015, but those who have been here for a long time, I think, will notice how these changes have fundamentally changed aspects of our institution already, and generally for the worse. So it's important that we notice the ways in which the current provisions are not working and the problems that they're creating, and that as we deliberate about what the new rules should be, that we ensure we are pushing for solutions to these problems instead of allowing these problems that the government has created with this new model to simply continue to exist and fester. The most critical concern I have about the way the current approach to hybrid parliament operates is the way that they have shifted the role of and powers of committees in this place. So previously, without the hybrid provisions in place, committees could sit largely whenever they wanted. They had designated time slots, but they had a great deal of flexibility in terms of going beyond those time slots. And as a political staffer, I recall times when we were dealing with critical issues in this place where committees would say, we need to create a new subcommittee, and that subcommittee is going to meet for 5 hours, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night, to deal with whatever the issue is. There was flexibility for committees to do what they wanted to get to the bottom of issues that had to be addressed. Committees could also extend if there was some unresolved issue, and I'm thinking here to some extent of the filibuster that's been alluded to, and yes, the filibuster is a legitimate technique that is used by all parties. I think Mr. Christopherson of the NDP still has the record for it. We have a filibuster ongoing with the Liberals of Public Accounts, and yes, from time to time, some people I know in our own caucus may have used that tool once or twice. But the point is, the filibuster is a tool that seeks to create a balance between the majority and the minority in committee, and generally filibusters are resolved by committees sitting for extended hours, which forces members who are filibustering to maybe come back to the table. When you have hybrid provisions that limit committees to only sitting in narrow time slots, it actually makes it much easier for members to filibuster, and why there has been an explosion of the use of the filibuster, again, by all parties in this House since these rules have been put in place. So these resource limitations, they constrain committees in their ability to sit for extended periods of time and actually resolve conflicts that may exist in the context of those committees, and to dig deeply into issues of concern for our national life. An example that I remember vividly from my career is the process by which the Uyghur genocide was recognized in this Parliament. It was the Subcommittee on International Human Rights sitting for 2 days solidly because the committee members wanted to do that, to look at the situation of Uyghurs in China. And at the end of those 2 days of intensive sittings, the committee was able to come to a particular conclusion. Now, with the hybrid provisions in place and the resource limitations, it would be much more difficult for any committee that wanted to look in a deep way at any issue to be able to do that. And committees, in order to access resources, they need to go to the whips of the various parties who then are able to make determinations about the allocations of resources. So control over committees is no longer in the hands of members of those committees to decide when they sit. Control about when committees sit, how they sit, what time slots they have available to them are made by the central controllers of the resources that are going to be available. These central controllers, the whips, in some form decide, are we going to allow industry or public accounts or foreign affairs to have that narrow slot? And committees have to get that approval, get access to those resources in order to sit. So the way this place has changed is that committees no longer have autonomy, they no longer have control, they no longer have the ability to delve deeply into issues as required, because it is the central controllers as opposed to the members of the committee that decide who gets resources. And I think there's been some acknowledgement that this is a fundamental problem, a fundamental change in the way our institution operates. But members opposite have said, well, this is a problem, we need to solve it, but we should just move forward anyways. And I would submit to the House that we've been dealing with this problem ever since we've had hybrid parliament. Members have repeatedly raised concerns about it, and it may be an issue of available dollars. It may be an issue of available people with the experience and expertise who can do the interpretation. I don't know exactly what the source of the problem is, but the point is we've been doing this for years, and we still have that problem persisting. So I would say if we're going to move forward with some kind of a hybrid framework, we have to do so in a way that protects the fundamental rights of committees in order to be able to do their job, and that means resolving these resource issues in some way. This is the most important point that I want to get out tonight, Mr. Speaker, is that the hybrid provisions undermine the ability of committees to act autonomously, and for all members in all parties who care about the functioning of parliamentary committees, we cannot push forward these permanent changes to the standing orders without resolving that issue of committees.